So glad you've returned to Mastering Counseling. Today, we are really excited to talk to Edvardo Archer, who will mainly refer to as Eddie, who is the founder of AP Family Counseling, and he's been doing this work for over 15 years. Welcome to the podcast today, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Um, why don't you go ahead and tell us the beginning of your experience in the mental health world and why you went into it and what appealed to you about it and how it started for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. And again, Becky, I appreciate your invitation and allow me to be a part of this series that you're putting together. So yeah, how I started as a therapist, well, one, I think I've always been intrigued by the idea of psychology.
Mm.
I will say this, that there was a certain point in my life that I crashed into that really mandated, right, that I needed to lean in. So after college, I became a house dad for young men that aged out of foster care. So
Okay.
these are, you know, young men that turned 18. They're no longer, wardens of the state, and they're trying to build life and learn to be independent. And what I didn't know at the time is all the trauma that these young men would walk with, and their
Hmm.
experience and being in the system, or even the situation that caused them to be in the system and be removed from their homes. And there was one evening where a young man who at that time was suicidal and had a number of different things going on. And I remember spending hours in that evening with him, just
Mm.
drawing from things I've read, classes I've taken, just really digging in to try to help him navigate this moment that he was in.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where I realized that I need to do more. I've got to go deeper into understanding this field, understanding this world. I knew that I was always intrigued and wanted to be a part of it. But that was my clarion call, where it's like, hey, this is now the time that I
Yeah.
could get more resource for the community that I love and those I'm trying to serve.
Yeah. That is so powerful and very personal to me. I have a strong connection with some people who would be in a place where you were the house dad.
Mhm.
So it's very personal. And then in the past, I've done some foster care and adoption
Mhm.
myself. And so, yeah, it's a lifelong process. And,
It is.
you are
It is.
meeting them at that crucial moment where they kind of can be their own person, but they missed a lot of things along the way, many of them. So that's
Yeah.
very powerful for sure. And I could probably talk about that all day, but I'm sure we'll come back to it.
All good.
But we'll want to hear all about your career and everything.
Sure.
Um, when you in your practice now, AP Family Counseling, which what does the AP stand for?
It stands for anchor point. And it's a word picture for a number of different things. It's the position that an archer takes right before the arrow
Mm,
launches. So I thought like resting point. It's also the core anchoring for a bridge,
mm,
before it's being built.
yeah.
So it really captured like my heart about this work and what I wanted to look like.
Yeah, I love those
Yeah.
metaphors. Very cool for sure. So what does Anchor Point kind of look like these days? Are you the one therapist? Are there others? And what types of challenges are you helping families with?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's just me, solo practice, and I am, working. It's private practice only,
Mm,
private pay only, the way that it's rolling in my world.
yeah,
And Yeah, mostly when I am able to get a family group together, um, we all just roll into my private practice at my office, and we're working through the situations. Of course, in my world, there's always a identified, patient, the one person in the family group.
Mm,
But one of the things early on that I do, and the way I serve families, is to begin to show everyone that your family is actually a corporation and everyone
mm,
has a job that they play. In order for this family to stay stable, this person, the identified patient, has a problem that keeps you all in your jobs. And if he
mm,
were to one day change, everyone would have to change. And so I lead families through the pain of changing.
mm,
And that is, I find, the process that is most healing, as the whole entire system has to lift up and be different.
hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a lot of joking about, family counseling or couples counseling where the one person is all in and everyone else is kind of dragged there. But I'm sure
Mhm.
you hopefully give them hope, with these metaphors and trying to see the big picture. So,
Oh yeah. Oh
um,
yeah.
and then do you then sometimes do individual sessions with the one person and then bring the family back monthly, or
Hmm.
give us some example of some of the dynamics in how
Yeah.
you work it out in families.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think generally my approach and thinking around a session is essentially we can flex and use a session however we choose. And so I've seen and I've used different formats. So there's some sessions where it's the entire family and we're in together, for
Mhm.
that 50, 60-minute time. Then there's like everybody's coming, but I'm doing individual conversations and then bringing everybody together. I've also
Okay.
done things like, hey, I'm going to do quick 30-minute coaching online sessions,
Mm,
because that family might be in that place of health where it's quick touches that's the thing that's going to keep moving them forward.
okay.
And then of course I have instances where it's like pause everything. Dad, it's going to be me and you, for a few sessions, until we can get to the next phase of transformation, that the family
Okay.
needs, right? So yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen all those dynamics and I use them freely and willingly based on what I'm noticing
Yeah.
happening in the family.
Yeah. It's a lot of, I would think, response in the moment in the week as opposed to when it's just one person
Mm-hmm.
planning to come on Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you're always having to evaluate what is the next best step or who is the next best
Yeah.
person to focus on. So,
Yeah, no, exactly.
um,
Exactly.
yeah. So, when you said you were a house dad, and I think you were out of college at that point, did you have your
Mhm.
master's at that point, or is that what pushed you into getting certified in that realm?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I was finished with college. Actually, Becky, I was trying to get into real estate, investing. I was taking
Oh,
classes, I
wow.
was going out making deals fresh out of college. The crazy thing is that this was all happening around 2007 when the whole market crashed, so I got my butt
Oh,
kicked.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure that's one of the things that took me out of that. But yeah, I was just coming out of college with my bachelor's. I was considering, like, and that experience had me show up to the next set of orientations at
Okay.
my university that I attended.
Okay.
So yeah, and I started to go for my master's and enrolled into that process, got licensed, became a licensed supervisor. And yeah, that's kind of takes us to where we are today.
Okay. Yeah, we always love exploring different programs and licensures that
Yeah,
people do. And so it's good to hear. But yeah, wow, real estate investing and into this, very different worlds.
very different world.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is interesting though is there's a full circle aspect to it because I've always been very entrepreneurial. And I think
Hmm.
any therapist is. And that's one of the reasons I'm grateful for what you're doing here is you're helping us address that side of it too, right? The innovation and
Hmm.
the building aspect of it. And so I've always been very entrepreneurial and that's actually the next evolution of my family work is I'm now working with executives and
Mm.
entrepreneurs to implement the same kind of strategies and ideas into their world as well. So So it's cool.
Okay.
I'm grateful for that, for the experience I had.
Yeah, it's funny how past jobs, careers can pop in to help you in a totally
Mm,
different career, but the skills that you learned for sure reading people, especially investing in real estate. I feel like you're always evaluating like you are now. What is the next step? What do I do
right,
today? So I
right,
can see the
right.
connection for sure.
Yeah.
Um, you offer both in-person and online sessions, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. And how do you, is that basically what the client wants, or how do you decide how that works, whether they should be coming in or if you can meet with them online?
Yeah, yeah, and that's good. Well, I often, even for my online clients, if possible, I always want to at least start with one face to face. And this time where it's just for trust. You and
Mm,
I both know that is trust and joining, right? Is the most significant factor in
hmm
determining the effectiveness of therapy.
hmm
So whatever I can do to build towards that is helpful. And some clients actually just need that online, right? That's the best way to build
Yeah.
trust. I will say my biggest observation is during COVID, online sessions was it, right? That was clutch. We all were building our online worlds. After that, I'm finding that a lot of my clients have quite an aversion to the idea of meeting online
Mm,
anymore, because it's been done and they still are
yeah.
doing it, right?
Mm,
And so the it's now just a better experience, coming into the office. So right now I may have just a couple clients who I meet online with, and often that's determined because of distance and time. We
okay.
do online. But majority of my other folks, it's they're coming into the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, We've talked on other episodes about like office setup and furniture placement and everything, especially once when we were talking about couples and marriage therapy.
Mm.
Do you find yourself doing any rearranging or anything like that with your space, depending on who's coming in and how big the family is?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that is interesting for sure. If it's a bigger family, I'm bringing in chairs for sure.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, there are instances where I will deliberately meet at a board table,
Okay.
as opposed to open space.
Mm,
I find that there's just some settings I think that require a little bit more formal, confrontational, just kind of let's put the pieces together, right?
mm-hmm.
And then we have breaks. And oftentimes when I do that, I will do one-on-ones and bring people to the more relaxed,
Okay.
environment, so that we can decompress and process and build in, so we come back to the board table and have kind of
Okay.
board table conversations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think space is important. Right now I'm collaborating with an organization called CoSpace
Mm,
down here in Florida that rents and offers office space specifically for therapists, and they just they do a beautiful job. It's just
mm,
all of their offices are my dream offices. So
okay.
so it's cool because I mean that's a consideration. Like how nice is that space for you, the therapist? Like how comfortable are you in
Yeah.
creating it so that you can flow and feel like you're just in your zone for
Yeah.
the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a company down in Fort Lauderdale. They only rent to therapists and then they design these amazing offices.
They do, right?
Oh,
Hmm.
very cool.
South
That's good to
Florida, they're
know.
expanding. Maybe they'll be up your way. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I know I haven't heard of that around here, or I don't think it's been mentioned. I mean, I know people get help from like interior designers and things like that, but a
Mhm.
set building that's really cool to have that. And for someone like me as well, design and all that is not my jam. So
Okay,
if
I
someone
hear
else
that.
can do it, I will let them.
Right.
Um So, a big part of your values in your work is authenticity and honesty, which you kind of referenced earlier. Just talk to us about how that's such a core part. I mean, it's a part of every practice, I'm sure, but how is that a main goal for you, especially in the work of families that you're doing?
Yeah, if you look, I've been doing this work for, as you say, 15 years, 20 years, and you kind of sit back and realize there's some patterns here about how and why things go wrong. And one of the biggest patterns that I've noticed is that people don't have a voice, or they don't give themselves permission to exercise their voice.
Mm,
And I think the word authenticity and honesty, those two words really capture the becoming aspect of giving myself permission to feel, giving myself permission to express, giving myself permission to grieve or to hurt. I think the road towards some of the tough lifting that you have to do in
hmm
therapy comes with authenticity and honesty. So yeah, I find that sometimes the dance of therapy is like, hey, I'm going to create a space and keep affirming you until you can actually it's called leading from one step behind. I'm going to kind of create this so that you can arrive at a place
Yeah,
of saying, hey, like, let me be honest, let me take off the mask, let me stop putting on the show to impress you,
right.
and just use this space for
hmm
what I need in my growth and my healing.
hmm
Yeah, those are really important concepts. And
hmm
yeah, they're important for my own expression, but I really want all my clients to arrive at something like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the word authentic is so important, especially the more that everyone is online creating their own emojis, or I think there's even where you can actually purchase high-end clothing for part of your emoji.
Mm,
And,
mm,
it's just not real, or, there's all the filters and everything. And
yeah,
so we've lost a little bit of the authenticity, and people really do need it for sure. So.
sure.
Um, you mentioned before that kind of your new venture and the work that you're going into is executive therapy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that. So, yeah, executive therapy, I guess one of the things I've noticed is that even the best of us struggle. And so when you think of the epitome of productivity and success, you're thinking of, entrepreneurs, executives, achievers, overcomers. And that is true. But one of the things, if you really sit back and look at it, is that the activity of achieving, the activity of success in itself can make you a villain in your own story,
Mm,
because you're not because the work is demanding and it becomes your identity, because the you burn out, and now who
mm,
am I outside of what I'm doing,
yeah.
and how do I rediscover who I am because of life
hmm
circumstances, because of never being able to learn to dance with the insecurities right inside of
hmm
you. And so, except like learning to constantly overwhelmed by achieving, and doing more.
mm,
And so a lot of my work with executive therapy is just going back into let's get you authentic, let's get you honest. Let's give you permission to orient yourself to a journey. We're using a
hmm
lot of the same really good tools in therapy, except I'm creating a bridge specific to entrepreneurs and executive leaders, so that it's both, yes, very productive focused.
hmm
But here's the thing: productivity isn't you doing more. Productivity should be you knowing what to ignore,
mm,
so that you can invest and be present in the things that actually matter.
right.
And so that's the journey. That's the work that I'm working to build up and serve.
Okay. And I'm sure a lot of it is word of mouth, and one
Mm,
person has some success and then they share their friends when they're at their next big executive dinner or whatever it is.
yeah, right now that's all it is. Who knows? Maybe I get
Yeah.
an amazing team like you have, and we'll
Oh,
do bigger things.
yes, I do have a great amount of people behind me for sure.
Right.
So let's talk about you mentioned how you might use that office space, or you are using it, or you were considering it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the office space, the co-space
Yeah.
that I'll tell you about, I do use it.
Oh, you do
I do
use
use it.
it.
That's my
Okay.
main office space.
Yeah. So that's definitely, I would say, one checkbox. But when we think of the other angles of the practice and like the accounting, the scheduling, do you have any assistance with those parts of it? Kind of the business side, or are you able to handle that as well?
Yeah, yeah, I handle it, but let me tell you, the key to me is automation.
Okay.
What's important to me is I have to enact several tools so that those things can work without me having to be involved. So
Okay.
example is my for referrals and for incoming calls, I set up my voicemail. So it's immediately, hey, I'm either with a client or I'm with my family.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a link to schedule a consultation, and I push
Okay.
everybody to do to my consultation for scheduling. I use a series of different apps on my calendar together. So everything is communicating. And all my
Okay.
clients can only see my availability. And when they book it, I'm actually available. And it's a great time,
Mm-hmm.
for us to meet. And so a lot of those tools, same thing with my accounting side, um, is I just use a QuickBook for self-employed,
Okay.
and all of that just communicates with one big, at the end of the year, I do have an accountant. All right, I hire an
Okay.
accountant. I don't want to mess with I don't want to mess with that
Yeah.
stuff, and make sure I have the right person for that. But yeah, automation is a huge part to my solar entrepreneurship effort
hmm
right now.
No, that's good. Some people, oh, there's the dog. Some people, have people that do that, and then other people are really good at using the different apps. But I love when people can mention certain programs that are really helpful for their work, especially if they are handling those things, as you said, in an automated way. So,
Mhm.
um, now, one thing that stood out to me in looking at what you're doing is that you have offered the free course of journaling. And my husband is a huge journaler. I'm always aspiring to journal. But he really does years and years of
Nice.
journaling. So I was like, this is amazing that you've done this. So talk to us
Great.
about this free course. I think it's newer.
Yeah.
And what prompted you to create it, and where can we find it?
Yeah, sure, sure. So I'll make sure I send you a link to it. But if you go to if you go to my website, AP Family Counseling
Mm-hmm.
.com, it's right there on the first page.
Okay.
And so uh it's a simple what I wanted to address was all the fear around journaling. And I think a lot of people don't journal because it's the form, because it's like I don't want to do it wrong. Like I want to do it right. I
Mm,
want to do it like consistently. And so the approach that I took here is and I'm training, just for how do I interact with my journal like a therapist,
okay.
and I'm using, in it you'll kind of see the storytelling aspect of it, which kind of goes through act 1, act 2, act 3, and the intention of this course is like, how do you, like you would in the therapy office, authentically like throw up on the page, let everything out,
Mm,
and then process the things that you just like threw out there, and
okay.
then at the very end be able to build out internal support and affirmation and validation for what you're noticing. So the idea there is daily authentic journaling. There's so many different ways to journal, but this is one that's like, it's really great if you're looking for like, hey, high impact, I really need to kind of sit down with my thoughts and get it all out. this is a really
Mm-hmm.
good one to get you on that road,
Okay.
and to make journaling a little bit more consistent for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's so cool that you made that.
Yeah.
Um, and do you use this as part of your sessions with families as well, or it's just one strategy? Is it your main strategy? Are they very connected, I guess?
I'll just say I meet it's you're if you come to my office and work with me, you're going to hear about journaling. I tell all my
Mm-hmm.
clients I need them to engage some level, and
Yeah,
maybe it's not, it just looks different for each person, depending
right,
on what where they're at. For the younger people, I might do, hey, you're going to do a voice note on your iPhone and walk around the block. That's your journaling. For another person is you're going to do
right.
weightlifting, and like
Okay.
notice it while you're so. But journaling and is super important because yeah, at the end of the day, we need environments so that we can think about thinking. We can that metacognition, which is the magic of therapy, right? It's like, let me sit down and consider what I'm actually doing and thinking and how am I approaching this. So yeah,
Hmm.
those things are important. I think that's the
Yeah.
key approach.
Okay. Very cool. Um, if you were gonna go back to when you got out of college and you were going through careers and then the market crashed, what would you want yourself to know at that time if you knew what you were doing now? Or what would you just say to the up and coming counselors and therapists who are either trying to begin their work or maybe they're still in the middle of their getting their license?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what's important, especially early on, is find a supervisor that can not just here's a big challenge, guys. Early on, you have so much book knowledge and theory and understanding about how this thing is supposed to work. The next journey you're about to engage is actually, how does this thing fit? How does it fit the work I do, the people I work with, but also me as an individual?
Mm-hmm.
And your effort now over your supervision and your licensing process is you as a professional integrating the two. So I
Mm-hmm.
find that getting a supervisor is incredibly important.
Okay.
I think paying attention to the entrepreneurial and business side of things is important
Yeah.
too. So paying attention to like podcasts like yours,
Mm-hmm.
and other tools and resources so that as we're building, we're not limited by, oh, therapy has to look like you working in a hospital for
Right.
insurance, and you have to have these limitations or it'll never work. That's not true. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So expand that, learn, and get supervision that'll help you really integrate
Right.
those your understanding and your experience.
Um, yeah, no, that's helpful for sure. And I'm sure you would say a supervisor that really clicks with you, right? Like you'll have to
Yeah.
be comfortable with them.
Oh
And
yeah.
um, would you say, do you feel like the supervisor needs to be in kind of the same type of work or in clients you're focusing on, or just a general part of mental health? What would you be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's an interesting question. Uh Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's paramount that they work with the
Mhm.
same clients that you work with. Um,
Mhm.
I think what is important is that they have the ability to give you the principles on navigating all the different pieces that's going to be important for
Yeah.
supervision, emergencies, like, just how, but also how to ask the critical questions to help you navigate who you are as a therapist in that room.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that there are instances, Becky, where it's helpful to have a supervisor that has similar
Okay.
experiences. You're dealing with dual diagnosis, you're dealing with
Mm.
addiction.
Yeah,
Um, you have to understand that that takes a different kind of just personality approach,
for sure.
and so having modeling from that
Mm.
standpoint from a supervisor could be incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, especially I feel like when it taps into a lot more medical side of things,
Yes.
I could see where you'd want someone some of those things are a little more black and white than other areas. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, well, you've given us so much, lots of exciting things happening in Florida, and
Mm-hmm.
love that we got to go through the journaling process. Is there anything else that you feel we didn't get to cover today or you wanted our listeners to know about?
No, you did fantastic. I think we covered just about everything. And of course, for the listeners, y'all feel free to utilize the journaling resource we just talked about for yourself or
Mhm.
share with others. It's all there for you. And I'm again grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and have this conversation.
No, we're very grateful to hear from you, Eddie Archer, family therapist down in Florida. Thank you so much for your time today and just always bringing new ideas to the show as we hear from our different hosts or our different guests.
Like you did in this doc.
Yeah. Yes. So thanks so much for your time today, Eddie.
Of course. No, I'm grateful and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this today.
Yeah, be sure to check out the website he mentioned, AP Family Counseling. To our audience of listeners, please leave us comments and questions on mastering counseling and join us again for our future episodes. Have a wonderful day.